Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Word is Your Wand, the podcast that was created to create awareness of how all of our words create our life. And in a holy instant, when we change our language, we can change our entire life. My name is Carrie Mushaw, and I am your anxiety coach, and this is my business partner.
Andrea Alexander, your anxiety coach and expert.
Awesome. And this morning we have another coach that will be joining us. And before we begin, I just choose to speak into the week. And so far, what I've noticed this week is so much awareness around relationships, because Andrea and I are in the middle of a relationship class, and how we have just become aware of how we may have taken on our parents' patterns and believing they're ours. We watch something that as we grow up in our homes, we'll experience our parents, we'll watch them, and then we travel from that. And many times what I've seen so far is a lot of people say, no, that's not going to be me. No, that's not going to be me. And what we're aware of is that we take on their patterns anyway, because no is not enough. And we're just remembering that we require actually calling forward exactly what we actually desire.
Yes.
And it's been pretty amazing in this last week, just watching our classes and what's happening for us. And so with that, Jayme is here, and Jayme is also a coach, and she is very good in relationships. So I'm going to move Jayme in. Good morning, Jayme.
Good morning, ladies. I am so excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So we already put on the altar the whole relationships, because that's what's been coming up for us. And I know that in what you do as a coach, that you experience many people and how they're having relationships with themselves, with their friends. One of the things that I read when I was reading, and you sent your little your little write up over on your explanation of what you do. One of the things it said supporting people that are the strong friend. Will you explain what that is exactly?
Yes, absolutely. That's my favorite part about why I refer to that in my explanation, is because so many people are like, wait a minute, is that me? Am I that person? So this phrase really first came out during COVID, right? When mental health really was being brought to the forefront of social media and just, dare I say, trending, rightfully so, right? But it was check on your strong friend, check on your strong friend. Then last year, or like a year and a half ago, Miss USA had died. Everyone's like, what? Oh my gosh, check on your strong friend, check on your strong friend. In December, Twitch, another amazing, positive, happy, loving looking person dies of suicide. Check on your strong friend. So often is where I think, especially within women, but men carry this as well, is it's the person who they try to validate their worth by being able to be there for those people, and they're strong enough to do so. But then the problem lies in is that when they have a problem, they dismiss their own, because one, they don't want to have it used against them in the future. Two, it's that they will justify why somebody else's problem is bigger than theirs. Or three, that individual just doesn't even properly know how to make space for what they need. So if somebody tries to help them, they're going to push them away. So that is why, already I'm sure we can tell the energy difference on the screen from all three of us. I'm a very intense individual, takes one to know one. I have navigated a lot of journey myself in overcoming the problem of being the strong friend. And that's where I like to be able to coach those strong individuals as well, and give them that space of vulnerability to let go of this need to fix other people to run from their own problems.
Carrie and I were talking about this before you came on. I said, what's the strong friend? And she goes, I imagine it's this. And I said, oh, the saver. I said, I know that one. That's who I have been in the past.
Right.
And I love that you put that on deck. It's, there's a lot of people who can identify with that, and what I'm aware of, and because of in consciousness and what Carrie and I do and how the things that we've happened in our lives, I'm aware that this is the person who is unwilling to call and support, has a no for receiving, because they believed that they aren't worthy, and or they will seem or appear weak. And I know that because in the past that's who I was too. And I'm aware of what it takes to call on support and receive, and lay that persona down. And so how do you support your clients in getting to where they put what we speak into is, I go first, I put myself first, with this unconscious belief that we've had that that's selfish. And so how do you support your clients in doing that?
So, one thing that I always like to mention, like as a coach, is I don't treat my coaching as like, and I know this is, let me preface this. I like to call myself a Sour Patch Kid, because I am very blunt and bold in what I say, but I promise the intention behind it as well. So when I say something and you're like, wait for it, because I promise the explanation is coming. As a coach, I'm not one of those Me Too movement kind of people. Like, this is how I did it, so this is how you can do it too. Because then the coaching is actually about me and not about my client. However, I do think that there is power in relating and knowing that somebody else has overcome that story, right? Like the second already, Andrea, you mentioning like, hey, I used to be that person. Like, so already where my body and my energy is going is like, I'm linking to you, like, yes, okay, so you get it, right? Like I can now imagine that you feel what I feel. So I think that's first and foremost important, to be able to have that space for the client. But also I think that's the power of having an unbiased source. There's safety in that person knowing that, like, okay, like this isn't the person that I do have to take care of on a regular basis. So I know I can bring this to them and there isn't going to be any judgment. And I can continue to go love on my relationships, but get mine out over here, and then learn how to properly ask and receive help, because it's coming from over here, not the people that I see day to day. Does that make sense?
Yes. And what I hear is you have a no for codependence. And you're teaching people to be sovereign, which is what Carrie and I speak into. And you said Sour Patch, we say direct, because what we're aware of is that in our realm is that anything outside of us, other people, places, things, or situations or experiences, if we are having an emotional reaction, that's a codependent belief. There's something in that that's been triggered by an experience of the past. And so Carrie and I talk about, we no longer playing in persons and personalities, because we are here to support people in moving through the truth of what happened. And if it's a trigger. And so codependence is where that's where we find gold in the things that we're here to do. It's our golden little gems and nuggets that we get to resurrect into something completely new and different. And you're spicy. It's fun.
Boring has never, I've been called many of things in my life, but boring is never one of them.
I hear you.
Awesome. And Jayme, do you find, so this is, I also hear that this is how people defend themselves. This is how they create this strong front to defend themselves and actually keep people at a distance. Do you find, because you coach men and women, do you find it more in the realm of women or more in the realm of men?
I think, well, it's interesting because I mean, I'll say no matter what, the men break down on my calls far more often than what the females do. I think also typically, how do I want to describe this? I think that also even plays the gender card in here, because like a man being able to let their ego down to a female, they feel a little bit more safer in that nurturing environment. Whereas I think for a woman to, how do I want to articulate this? Women, I think, already feel like it's in their innate nature that they just have to, right? Like, I have no other choice. I just have to do these things. I just have to do it. So I think it takes longer for women to chip away at those walls than what it does men.
Okay. That's interesting, because one of the things that I am aware of a few things. First of all, that women, we build that this is how we do it. Like, this is what we're supposed to be. The strong nurturing type. So we pin the two together as if strong nurturing means defend, deflect, and get people at a distance, but I'll lead the way, and then nobody will be able to see who I truly am, or for me to be able to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware of how we'll create that as a belief that that's in the job description of a mom, a sister, a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed with men is, I was recently listening to people who are like, oh, men, they don't do that emotional thing. And I said to Andrea, I said, do they not do the emotional thing?
Yeah.
Or do we not know as women what to do with the
Right.
men that show up and do the emotional thing? I mean, who's really creating this?
We are.
Exactly.
Yes. And I remember in the Brene Brown, in one of her stories, talking about how a man came up to her in a book signing, and he said, my wife and my daughter would rather I die than fall off my white horse and see me weep.
Yep.
And one of the things I have men clients, and I've had more men clients. I've had a good number of men clients, and I'm often flabbergasted by what they begin to say almost immediately when they connect with me. And it's been, whoa. And what I'm aware of is, because of the work that I have done and my experience and the forgiveness that I have walked myself into because of what I experienced as a child, is I now see men in their purity and innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just share with me. They're comfortable. And I imagine that there's something in that similar that you may have done as well.
Yeah.
Where they just are effusive instantly or easily.
Yeah. And I think the power behind that too is being a bolder personality. Because I think like I'm definitely a type A, so I function really well, especially like communicating with other type A individuals, male or female. But especially, it's like growing through my own traumas and my own experiences. That's where I know I'm able to like bring them to that safe space, to let them show that like sense of innocence, like, hey, she's not going to use this against me later, right? Like, going back to it about it being that unbiased source, is that I can say this and I know she's not going to flip out at me and tell me that I'm wrong and that I should be doing this, or bring up an argument from the past, right? Because that's like a significant other, and it's like, okay, like, if you're not used to that dynamic within your household, like, this is how we have to break it down, so how you guys can both articulate this to one another. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And what I'm aware of is that we will behave with people the way that we were taught to behave based on our past experiences. Mm-hmm. So even walking into new relationships where we may have had the experience of, I'm not that person. You can be different with me. You don't require saying those things, believing those things. That's not who I am. I'm not her. I'm not him. And we're still carrying that. And so what we're learning to do is as coaches, we've learned to let go of judgment and create spaces where people feel secure to say, do, and be the truth of who they are. And when people show up in our spaces, they are there because they choose to have something completely different, and what they've been doing has yet to work. And that was my experience. I did all this cognitive behavioral therapy and talked for over 20 years. And I had a little relief, but did it work? No. Until I was really ready to find something that did. And that's where I came into conscious awareness, and that my words create my reality, and that I'm the one that's in control of how I feel. That I have the power to say, this is how this is going to go for me.
Yeah.
And that we get to play with the belief in that and the perceptions. And so it's what we're doing is we're waking up people as coaches to the truth of who they are on deeper and deeper levels. And I choose to know, Carrie, I don't know if you do, because you talked about there's some mindset stuff, and if you play in neuroplasticity, or what it is what are some of the tools that you use?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to that. But one thing, there was two different references that came into my mind. One, from the book, The Power of Now. I remember the first time that I ever read that. And the biggest golden nugget that I took from that was the question that he asked: do you control your thoughts, or do your thoughts control you? And this was years ago. So when I first read that, I'm like, well, duh, my thoughts control me. Like, it's my brain. I don't have any control over that. Like, how else, if a thought pops in my mind, it pops in my mind. I can't control it. But learning to take control, like recognizing the emotion, naming it for what it is, and then what am I going to do with this? Is it true? Is it not? Being able to navigate that journey, but it requires you to learn how to train yourself to become more mindful, which is, hey, naming an emotion in the exact moment that you're feeling it. Hey, I told myself I wasn't going to be this way in a relationship, and here I am doing it. I'm saying it's not me, but I'm doing it. Why am I doing it? What's the emotion behind this? When you can start to like catch it in real time, that's where you can start to like change it, right? Excuse me. So secondly, and this was the book reference that first came into my mind when you guys were starting and talking about relationships. Have you guys ever read the book, I'm Okay, You're Okay?
No.
Oh. So this psychologist pretty much breaks it down into that we have three different like personas that we interpret our information from. It is the identity of the parent, the child, or the adult. So going back to that scenario that you guys were talking about as like, saying that you would never be, like your mother or your father, it's because you were experiencing what that felt like from the side of being a child. But if you start acting on it and you're thinking the thoughts through as if the way the parent would have in the situation, that's why that is triggered. And the adult version is pretty much like you're seeing the situation as it's happening. It was just a really cool way that he broke it down. And so as you guys were talking about that, I think that that's another thing too, is that depending on why we respond to things the way that we do is based off of the viewpoint. If it was coming from like, hey, a kid, and this is how authority speaks to somebody, versus, as a parent that, no, this is what you have to do to guide somebody in the right direction to live this way in their life, right? Like knowing the intention attached to the perception you see it through.
Well, it's shifting the belief of the perception through which we saw it through. Because
right.
Experience of 0 to 5, and actually they're saying now 0 to 13, everything that we receive, perceive, experience goes into our brains as truth.
Right. Absolutely.
That's where, and you said, is this true? Yes or no? I love that, because that's something that I do. And so, because we make up things. And so what we're doing is we're acting and reacting based on the things that our parents, our teachers, and others shared with us that we took on as truth. And the subconscious mind, it's all stored subconsciously. We take on things even in utero, the experiences of our parents, fear, dread, excitement, enthusiasm. We take all that on too. It's all in our body. It's all stored, and we're reacting to those things as we go through life. We don't want to be our parents. We are our parents. They're our first teachers. And so then and our subconscious mind is at a 3-year-old. We're reacting to those experiences at the age of 3 constantly. It never changes. The adult is where we are now, where we get to see, oh, I remember this was something that happened to me when I was a child. I can do something different with this. And because you said power to qualify, we have the power to qualify what we choose for our experience to be. And it's the same thing, enthusiasm or nervous. We're getting ready to go on stage. I feel nervous. Are you nervous? Or are you excited? I'm nervous. Is that true? Feels the same. We get to say. And so the more, and what
which is a regaining of power. Because as a child, you believed you had no power. And so if that is playing all your life, you may be experiencing where you believe you don't have any power. So it's a regaining of power. It's choosing to say how I feel, and I can be the one that says what this is. That may have been my experience when I was 3. And at that moment, this is how it felt. And now I can choose to clarify it as, instead of being nervous, to be excited. And I can be aware of the fact that excitement is something that I choose in life. So I get to claim, and it's a regaining of power, which that's been coming up a lot lately too, in how we give our power away in relationships, which is the codependent part that you were talking about too, Jayme, which that was one of the things that connected Jayme and I in the very beginning, as we realized we were coaches that said no to codependence. We were like, yeah, baby, because we see so much of that. Oh, it's okay, and how we're being asked to call people forward in letting go of that codependence.
Yes. And so, how do people connect to you, and what do you have coming up next?
Yes. So I always tell people, feel free to cyber stalk me. Anything and everything you need to know about me. I'm very intentional about everything that I put out. So they can find me on my website, my Instagram, my Facebook. And then coming up, so I mean, I do serve with on a couple of nonprofits, which is also very effective with the type of work that I do. But up and coming, I always am willing to take on new clients. So just anybody who is looking to maybe work through being the workaholic or the strong friend, I have that coming up. I also, this year, I did take the year off from it, but I do run a wellness retreat every year in the country of Panama. So I'm looking to launch that next year. And that is a week-long wellness retreat. I like to intertwine I change the name every year, but I like to make sure that we get some of the calm, peace, and rest involved, but then we also learn how to navigate kind of the chaos into that and balancing out those two worlds. So that's kind of the intent to it.
Is your retreat men, women, mixed?
Co-ed.
It's co-ed. And how many clients do you
max that can attend is 20. So it is a very exclusive place. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. I choose to roll back though. I have to rewind. I'm doing a rewind because one of the things Jayme said, what we got was, she said the reason that clients come to her is because they feel comfortable. And what I heard was, in that comfort, you had to go first, which is, and men being able to be vulnerable with you means that you've changed the lens of how you see men.
Yes.
You've reframed all of that. So in the I go first, will you share briefly your journey that got you here, on how you went first?
Very fair. Very, very fair. So in a very, very quick example, although I am young, I have a very, very diverse resume personally and professionally. Personally, parents got divorced when I was 5, so anger and alcohol raised me. I threw myself into anything and everything that would keep me away from them. So work was a scapegoat for me as well. I experienced death starting at a very young age, family members to suicide. I lost friends to car accidents, murder, overdose, suicide, family members to cancer, old age, you name it, all of that. I was raped at one point. I was in an abusive relationship. I had attempted suicide. Drugs and alcohol were a thing. Pivoting and trying to find healthier habits like the gym and just shifting my addiction, if you will, to then more positive habits. Those were all things that I had to work through, and burnout happened where I had a massive kidney infection by the age of 25 because of just running on fumes. So I learned very, very quickly that running from my problems, no matter what my scapegoat wasn't working. And I had to learn how to sit with the emotions, process them, and work through them. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. But yes, really had to overcome a lot of different kind of things in a very short amount of time. And that's why, as a mindset coach, for me, I also think it's important and I very much relate to people that maybe aren't necessarily as open to, because I also used to be somebody who is like totally against yoga and more of like this Zen sense of calm because I thrived in chaos. So for me, anything that was calm and soft, that meant stuff was about to hit the fan. So I naturally would still gravitate to something that was more high energy. And so for me, it's being able to speak the language of those kind of individuals and like bring them over to the other side. Right. But it was because I had to work through that myself and learn that it was okay. But it took me to do that. And the analogy that worked best for me was just like a muscle in the gym. Mm-hmm. You have to train it, right? Like you can't just go to the gym one day and all of a sudden you're healthy and in shape. It's an ongoing lifestyle you have to do. And so some days you don't want to go. Some days that means you're increasing the weight and there's more tension involved, right? Like you have to learn how to navigate and work through and push through maybe some things in that way. And so that's kind of the analogy I do of with the brain on teaching people how to transform their habits, how to learn how to take their thoughts captive, and how to rewire their lifestyle.
Yes. And we had someone on a past podcast, and he said he was at the gym and his coach kept telling him, do the inner work. And he was like, oh, I'm good. Life is really good. It's perfect. I don't want to rock the boat. Everything's really great. And he said, well, why are you here working out? Are you sick? And he said, no. And he said, why are you here? Well, I do this so that I stay healthy. And he said, oh. And he looked at him and he goes, oh, I get it. You're telling me to do the inner work to stay healthy. I don't wait for something.
Well played, coach.
We're waiting for the bottom to fall out. And then and then I'm going to do the inner work. And what I heard from you is we may have experienced, and you've spoken to experiencing running from how you felt and getting busy with work, something to move and being aware that it didn't work. And so being able to stay still and allow yourself to feel so that you could move through it. And this is what the world does. And I heard you say, I had to. And all I heard was, you didn't have to. You made a conscious choice to do something completely differently because you could have kept going in that way and eventually self-destructed as you saw the patterns of your family.
Yeah.
And instead you said, there's more for me here in life. That's what I heard, which is amazing. And congratulations. And that I see the perfection in you and what you've done. And I'm so grateful that you're here and sharing that, because there is so many people that believe running is the coping mechanism, get very busy. And we're just aware that we can actually accomplish so much more in life when we just slow down and we acknowledge how we feel, because a feeling can move through us in 30 seconds if we will.
Yes, and I'm aware in my own, when I was in corporate America, when I realized that 30% of my actual energy got everything they were asking me to do complete. All the other stuff that I was doing that I was stressed about was stuff that I put on the list.
Yeah.
I put on the list, and nobody was asking me to do it but me.
Powerful. That's powerful.
And so I started opening my computer at 8 instead of 4 a.m. and closing it at 4 instead of 8 p.m. I gave myself hours upon hours a week.
I used to make a post regularly that would say, is it your job that sucks or do you suck? And it was for that same reason. Like, how are you treating yourself outside of your work mode? What type of pressure are you putting on yourself versus, like, job description is a job description. Like, technically the transaction is you work these hours, we pay you this money. What all is it that you're letting consume you past that? And again, Sour Patch Kid moment, but that's what it is like.
Yes. And they're not paying me enough because you're doing more than they're asking you to.
Right.
We do more because we're trying to prove how valuable we are. It's what we were taught by our parents unknowingly. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, busy is fear. Bless you. Thank you so much for what you do and for showing up today. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome. Moving Jayme in the back room, and just wanted to wrap up and let everybody know, thanks so much for joining us on Your Word is Your Wand. And you can find us on embodycoaches.com. You can find all of our information. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Embody Coaches, so you can get all of our little tidbits week to week and everything that we're bringing to you. Remember, every word you speak creates your reality. And in a holy instance, when you change your words, you will change your entire life. Thank you.